You have to believe that every dollar that you put out of one hand is going to be coming back to you in the other hand. And I can personally attest to the fact that any time when I have pushed myself to give more or invest in something that I believed in, that money came back to me like threefold, tenfold. Welcome to Money Musings, a podcast that breaks down money, investing, and wealth with zero BS and unapologetic irreverence. I'm your host and money co-conspirator, Stephanie Zenos. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. This week's podcast episode was going to be a drop into what's currently happening in the world. I was going to talk about silver and gold and markets, and I was going to talk about the Fed, and I was going to talk about the merge of SpaceX and XAI and a whole bunch of things like that. And that is all really interesting and important, but I feel like there's a larger theme that I want to touch on for this episode. And that's basically this transition or this metamorphosis that it feels like we are going through on a system level as humans, our, institutions, our ideas. It just feels like a big cultural shift moment. And so I decided to kind of speak to that instead. I just got back from Mexico. I was at an incredible event with 80 people that was a group of wealth stewards, as well as founders and people who are in the consciousness space. Also, every attendee that went to this was also on a consciousness journey and a journey with their own self-development on a spiritual level. And I've never been in a room like that before. Normally, when I am around people who are amazing and incredible at doing, who put things into the world, who launch companies, who run VCs, who have tons of capital, right? And they're just like chugging along in life. A lot of times those people are not that connected to their bodies, to their own spiritual journey, to the being side of the equation. And on the flip side, I just moved to Topanga a year ago and I've met so many sweet souls here. And there's a real energy here around being and being with ourselves, being with what's arising for us in the moment, being with our soma, our psychology, our healing work, like getting really deep into that and what we're on this planet to do. And a lot of times those people, I find them to be a little bit navel-gazy, right? Like maybe not doing as much. Maybe they haven't turned the corner to like integrate that being and started doing and pushing it out into the world. And that's why spiritual bypassing, I think, is like such a issue, is because oftentimes we will meet people, or I will meet people who they're on their own personal journey of development, but they're not pushing that out into the world in order to have an impact. So this room was incredible. It was an insane mix of those two. And I felt activated on every level. I was like mentally so engaged, spiritually so engaged, really pushed to new limits for myself, which was amazing. I loved it. And I came back feeling so inspired. I feel like I was gone 2 years and the entire world is in a frenzy. I'm just even like sensing that. I'm not even really reading the news, but I'm just like getting that sense. And I met with my friend Ayla, started chatting with her about my experience. Turns out a lot has happened since I was gone. So a couple of those things that I was going to talk about happened while I was gone. Like the world feels like someone is just shaking it up a little bit. And I've also heard a lot of language around like this ending or this death or like, things slipping away. So I wanted to kind of tap into that. And I feel like this conversation is a through line to all of the things that I was going to talk about, all of the actual financial and social events that are happening right now. So here's what I'm sensing. Here's what I'm feeling. I noticed that if I like drop into my awareness, I have a thought that time is speeding up. It feels like things are happening faster and faster and faster. And I notice that brings up a fear for me that something is slipping away, that I'm going to somehow miss out on something, or like things are slipping through my fingers. Things are happening too fast for me to like grab onto. Like it's just slipping away. So if you're somewhere safe to do this, maybe take a minute, a moment, a second to close your eyes and like ask yourself whether that resonates. Do you also feel like time is speeding up? Things are happening so fast and something is slipping away. Something is changing faster than we can quite hold on to. I also have this sense that all these assumptions I had made about the world are crumbling, whether that's ideas about our institutions, our rights, whether that's ideas about how I'm going to build my safety in finances. Those things seem to be shifting very quickly. We have Elon saying things about like how money's going to change, basically, to the point where it's going to be unrecognizable potentially, or we won't need it because robots are doing all the things and everything's so inexpensive. I think he talked about, instead of universal basic income, universal basic abundance, which is so notable for me because I have always sensed that, Elon's mission is around really putting things into the world that he views as necessary for humanity, but not necessary from a humanitarian aspect, that it's more about pushing progress than it is about elevating people as a collective. And that's his perspective, and we need people like that as well. But it is interesting to me to hear him talk about universal basic abundance, which sounds like something that would be tied to a humanitarian mission. I've also never known Elon to be wrong. His timelines might be different, but yeah. So that's also been something I've been sitting with, and these ideas about institutions and the way that the world works with money, with corporations, with education. Oh my gosh, it feels like somehow it's crumbling, and not in a bad way. Also, ideas about myself are crumbling. I find that I had this idea of myself for a long time. I felt like a very analytical, scientific person. And more recently, I have been feeling like science is actually just another harmful religion that doesn't allow us to open our eyes and minds to new things, even when they're being researched, even when things are being published. I spoke with someone recently at a coffee shop here who was a physicist also, and his mind was so closed to anything that was like new. It was very unnerving for me, and it reminded me so much of my past. But we were talking about like animal telepathy, plant telepathy. We were talking about energy work because MD Anderson is doing a study on energy work reversing some forms of cancer. Wild, wild shit, guys. So we were talking about that, and he wouldn't even listen to the podcast that I was referring him to. I wanted him to listen to an episode about that research, and he was like, no. He's like, no one's ever shown me anything that's going to change my mind or that could change my mind or that's real. And I was like, well, how would you know if you won't even listen to this thing that I'm trying to send you? But that's beside the point. I think the point is that our ideas about ourselves and our institutions might be in a moment of a big change, or at least they are for me. I'm curious if you also feel that right now. So as much as it can be feeling like a death right now, I think the truth is that it's just a very painful birth. And when I was at this week-long event, I met a wonderful woman, Jochi Ma, who carries so much ancestral wisdom from the original peoples. And she was saying, that this moment is very historic, that lots of people have chosen to come to the planet at this moment just to live this change. And she described it as the end collapsing into the beginning. So it is a painful birth that almost feels like a death. So if you are experiencing that kind of like, wow, churning feelings, frenetic energy, or people in your life may be feeling really unstable, yeah, I just wanted to share that with you as a potential different way to view things. I'm really feeling it as a painful birth, but also like it's going to be a joyous birth, because whatever comes out on the other side, I truly believe is going to be bigger and better than anything we've ever had. She said this change is about evolving from humans into human beings. And yeah, I really resonate with that. I really feel like we're all being invited up. And so I'm really excited. And I wanted to take this moment while I'm in all of this headspace to talk a little bit about, my vision for the world and the impact that I want to have. When I first started Money Muse, it was really just about sharing the knowledge that I had accumulated financially that allowed me to retire. And along that process, I learned that I was a compelling speaker. I learned that I was a compassionate coach. I learned how much I really cared about other people's journeys and upleveling, and how invested I am in others. When I say that I am totally here for your journey or totally interested in your acceleration, totally obsessed with your up level, that couldn't be more true for me. I feel as if there's a moment, and it's corresponding with this transformation, where we need more people to step up and step into something bigger. And we need resources in order to do that. We need time, we need money, we need expertise. And my vision all along was to help get people from financial fear, not being able to look at their bank account, not understanding their investments, but being too scared to ask, into a place of sovereignty and safety so that they could leave a job or a partner or a situation that wasn't serving them, and then taking it even farther so that now when they think about their money and resources, there's a sense of excitement, there's a sense of purpose, there's a sense of I can do this, I can be a change. And then finally to their impact. So this last piece I've been building to, it feels like for 8 years, but unfortunately timelines need to collapse. I've been slowly building this, let's call it a tower, because the tower card feels like so relevant right now as things are crashing down. I've been building this tower where I invited people on a financial journey through Ignite to really get their finances to a place where they understand it and feel totally confident. And that has been working. It is beautiful. And then the purpose of that ultimately was to get as many women as possible to be accredited investors so they could have a broader window into investments and financial opportunities so that they could invest in companies and people who were generating returns, yes, hopefully beating the market, yes, but also changing the world for good, having like a huge, enormous positive impact. So there's something in business and in investments called the triple bottom line, where it's basically about like trying to do good, for your stakeholders, but also having a positive impact. And there's ESG and socially responsible investing. And all of these concepts have been almost greenwashed. It's not that they don't do anything, but it starts to feel performative. Historically, people have asked me about investing and said, do you do ESG investing? Do you do socially responsible investing? And there's all of these funds that exist where they basically take the whole market and then they take out anything that follows their definition of not socially responsible. So maybe they take out guns, maybe they take out tobacco, these kinds of things. Maybe it's oil and gas, but it's always someone else's like checkbox definition of what socially responsible means or meeting their requirements for ESG. But if your definition doesn't align with their definition, then an ESG fund is basically useless. And at least historically, they hadn't performed as well as some of the other funds. That is shifting. But for me, it just wasn't enough. Everything has been greenwashed in this world. It's like, buy this eco-friendly car, buy this eco-friendly gummy bear. It's like, this is an organic gummy bear, no red dye. And it's like, that still doesn't mean that it's nutritious for you. Still doesn't mean that it's good for you. So taking it a step further when it comes to allowing people to invest in things that are actually having a positive impact on the world, whether that is, an environmental impact, a community impact, but actually doing good, or regenerative farming, regenerative systems. That's really where my passion lies. And I feel like I have been building Money Muse to take women to that journey where they're ready to do that work, but I don't have time anymore. And like timelines need to collapse and I need to start maybe doing that work sooner than I expected. So, basically, you're going to be hearing from me a lot more in the coming months and years about how to get there. And also, once you're there, how to actually make a positive impact with your money while still supporting yourself. As I said, in the first phase, it really is self-focused. It is about getting you to stability. And, I've met people that tithe or that give money away before they get to that own level of stability for themselves. I've met countless women who give their kids money for college when they are not actually safe and set themselves. And that concept doesn't resonate. We all need to be in our best, most solid, juicy, stable, secure state in order to give fully to others. And so that's why I want to steward women to that point, but I also want to take it a step further. Now, not everyone cares about giving back to the world. Like, some people really are a little more self-focused, and I still want to help those people reach financial sovereignty in terms of being able to take care of themselves and their families and their needs. Because I think every single human deserves financial sovereignty, financial safety. That is what I built my business on. But now I want to take it a step further. I want to help the women who actually want to actively be a positive change in the world, whether that's launching a business, whether that's investing in businesses that are doing really amazing work for humanity, whether it's investing in your own spiritual journey, whatever it is. I want to help women who want to take that next step from just having financial sovereignty and safety to giving back in a really generous and abundant way. There is a level of financial energetics and money energetics that comes into play when you get to this place. You have to believe that every dollar that you put out of one hand is going to be coming back to you in the other hand, and you're going to be closing that circuit, and wealth is going to be flowing in and out of you. And I can personally attest to the fact that any time when I have pushed myself to give more or invest in something that I believed in, that money came back to me like much more, threefold, tenfold, whatever it is. So I'm always challenging myself on that. And I'm also at the point where I'm ready to challenge my clients, my friends, the people in my life to give more. And frankly, if you're not interested in bettering the world and being a part of this positive change as we evolve from humans into human beings, I would love to help you have financial sovereignty. But as far as completing that circuit, the spiritual work and the work involved to better the world, better yourself, I'm going to be reserving that for people who share my vision of a better world. When I think about what that vision is, it does include things like maybe universal basic income, or maybe that is irrelevant, as Uncle Elon was joking about, or maybe not joking. But to me, it's a world where we are changing our systems entirely, where we're no longer just fracking the world for an extra % of profit, where we're no longer fracking ourselves for work, where we're more aligned and coherent with each other. And we're creating systems that are collaborative, where everyone wins, where the earth wins, where we're not taking advantage of the earth for our own profits, where we're not taking advantage of each other for our own profits. No one is taking advantage of anyone. More collaborative, more symbiotic. And if you don't believe this is possible, bless you, but I do believe it's possible. I know that it's possible. I can feel it in my being. And so that is where my attention is going to be focused on in this next chapter, in this next phase of humanity. So as I said, this is like a little bit of a meta example for my greater trajectory with this podcast, because like, okay, let's talk about what's happening in the markets. Turns out, just kidding, I'm going to come talk about being a human and up-leveling as human beings and giving back and abundance and beauty. Sorry, not sorry. So yeah, I just wanted to drop in here and share that kind of, I don't know what it is, a download, whatever it is. And now I'm probably going to go back to bed with my cats and think about and be in my body and feel into how I can be a part of this next part of humanity. So thank you for listening. If you're still here and this resonates, I would love to know. Reach out to me, send me a note, put it in a comment, send me an email, whatever it is. I just want to know where you guys are at right now and how this is landing. All right, thanks. Thanks for allowing me to be part of your money journey. If you heard something that made you think in a new way or expanded your views about money today, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave me a cute little note in the form of a review. See you next time. As always, a quick but important reminder that everything I share here is solely for the purpose of your entertainment, education, and inspiration. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as personal financial, legal, or investment advice. Everyone's financial situation is wildly different, and that's why it's so important that you do your own research and decide what's right for you.